What if I told you there's a ghost in the northern woods? A creature weighing over 1,500 pounds that can vanish into the trees without a sound. An animal that looks like it was designed by a committee of artists who never spoke to each other. With the legs of a giraffe, the body of a bison, and a nose that could only be described as magnificent. This isn't a myth. This is the story of the moose, the undisputed king of the forest. And its story, from ancient giant to a modern-day survivor, tells us a lot more about ourselves than you might think. Today, we're going on a journey to understand one of the planet's most iconic and misunderstood animals. We'll explore its ancient origins, uncover a bizarre and forgotten history of attempted domestication, and confront the invisible threats that are pushing this giant to the brink. So, stick around, because the story of the moose is a wild ride. To understand the moose, we have to go back in time, way back. We're talking about the Pleistocene epoch, the age of mammoths and saber-toothed cats, the ancestors of our modern moose. Creatures like the stag moose, Cervalces scotti, roamed across Eurasia and North America. They were even bigger, with antlers that were bizarrely complex, spanning up to 6 feet wide. Fast forward to today, and the moose, or Alces alces, still reigns. And yes, for my friends across the pond in Europe, you know this animal as the elk. In North America, an elk is a totally different animal, which we also call a wapiti. It's a classic case of lost in translation. But whatever you call it, this animal is the largest member of the deer family on Earth. There are several subspecies, each adapted to its environment. The western moose you might see in the Rocky Mountains is large, but it's dwarfed by its cousin, the Alaskan moose. These titans are the heavyweights, with bulls standing over 7 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing up to 1,800 pounds. That's the weight of a small car. And then, there are the antlers. These aren't horns, they're pure bone, and they are the fastest growing animal tissue on the planet. A healthy bull can grow this entire rack, weighing up to 60 pounds, in just 5 to 6 months. Think about that. It's an enormous investment of energy, all for one purpose, to impress the ladies and intimidate rivals during the fall rut. After the mating season, they simply fall off. Talk about a seasonal accessory. But the moose's strength isn't just in its size. These animals are survival specialists, armed with an incredible set of abilities. First, their legs. They look comically long and stilt-like, but they're perfectly designed for their world. They allow a moose to step effortlessly over fallen logs and wade through snow that would trap almost any other animal. Second, they are swimmers. Unbelievable swimmers. A moose can paddle for miles and can dive up to 20 feet deep to feed on aquatic plants, holding its breath for a full minute. Their nostrils can even seal shut underwater. They are the original off-road, all-terrain amphibious vehicle. Third, their senses. Their eyesight is pretty poor, but their hearing and sense of smell are extraordinary. That giant nose, called a proboscis, isn't just for show. It helps them locate the most nutritious plants and warns them of predators from a huge distance. In its ecosystem, the moose is a keystone species. By browsing on young trees and shrubs, they create openings in the forest canopy, allowing sunlight to reach the floor and encouraging new growth. Their presence literally shapes the landscape. For millennia, this ancient giant lived in a delicate balance with its world, a world largely untouched by one particularly clever ape. Until, that is, we entered the picture. For thousands of years, the relationship between humans and moose was one of predator and prey, but also one of deep respect. Indigenous peoples of the north relied on the moose for everything: food, clothing from its hide, tools from its bones, and sinew for thread. The moose was a source of life, and it was treated with reverence. But as human societies grew more complex, our relationship with animals began to change. We didn't just want to hunt them, we wanted to control them. We domesticated horses, cattle, sheep, and dogs. And then, in one of the most curious chapters of human-animal history, we tried to domesticate the moose. This isn't a joke. In the 1930s, the Soviet Union launched a serious, state-sponsored program to create moose cavalry. The thinking was that in the dense, swampy forest of the taiga, where horses would struggle, moose would be the perfect all-terrain vehicle for soldiers. They established moose farms, or army, to breed and train them. The results were mixed. On one hand, moose calves, if taken young, could be tamed. They produced incredibly nutritious milk, richer than cow's milk, which is still produced in small quantities today. And yes, they could be ridden and pull sleighs. But there were big problems. Moose are solitary, not herd animals. They are fiercely independent and notoriously stubborn. They have a very specific diet of willow and birch that's difficult to provide on a large scale. And most critically, they are highly susceptible to stress. Confining them led to diseases, and the project was eventually abandoned. The moose simply refused to be broken. It proved that you can't just take the wild out of an animal that has spent millions of years perfecting its wildness. While the dream of moose armies faded, our impact on them was just getting started. It just became less direct and far more dangerous. Today, the biggest threats to the moose aren't predators like wolves or bears. The biggest threat is us. And, our influence has created these invisible killers that are stalking these giants through the woods. The first one has created a terrifying phenomenon known as the ghost moose. This is a winter tick. For a moose, it's basically like a horror movie villain. Historically, harsh winters would kill off most of these ticks. But with climate change leading to shorter, milder winters, tick populations are exploding. Last fall, tens of thousands of these tiny vampires can latch onto a single moose. They spend the entire winter draining its blood. A moose can lose so much blood it becomes critically anemic. The constant irritation causes them to rub off their dark fur, leaving ghostly white patches of skin exposed to the cold. These ghost moose become weak, disoriented, and often die of exhaustion and exposure. In some parts of New England and Minnesota, up to 90% of moose calves are not surviving their first winter because of these ticks. Think about that, a 90% mortality rate, all driven by a climate-related change. The next challenge is one of space. Moose need vast territories to roam and find food, but we are constantly slicing up their world with roads, railways, and suburbs. Every year, thousands of moose are killed in vehicle collisions. A collision with a 1,500-pound animal on stilts is catastrophic for the moose, and incredibly dangerous for the driver. These roads don't just kill them, they create barriers, isolating populations and limiting their genetic diversity. But perhaps the most insidious threat is brainworm. It's a parasite named, its natural host is the white-tailed deer, which has evolved to live with it without any ill effects. The deer passes the parasite's larvae in its droppings, which are then eaten by snails. Other deer eat the snails, and the cycle just keeps going. Here's the problem. As we've changed the landscape, white-tailed deer have moved further north, into moose territory. When a moose accidentally eats a snail carrying the parasite, the result is, well, catastrophic. The worm doesn't know it's in the wrong host. It travels to the moose's brain and spinal cord, causing severe neurological damage. The moose will appear disoriented, walk in circles, lose its fear of humans, and, eventually, die a slow, agonizing death. Ticks, cars, and brainworms. These aren't ancient predators. They are modern problems, byproducts of our own success, and they are creating a minefield for the moose. When you look at the moose's story, you're really looking at a mirror reflecting our own journey. Our early history with it was one of survival and respect. Then came our age of ambition, the era of the Soviet moose cavalry, where we believed we could bend any part of nature to our will. We failed, and the moose taught us a lesson about the limits of our control. And now, we're in a new era. An era of unintended consequences. We aren't actively trying to harm the moose. Most of us want it to thrive. But the world we've built, a world of interconnected trade, expanding cities, and a warming climate, is unintentionally dismantling the world the moose needs to survive. The plight of the ghost moose isn't just a story about ticks. It's a story about global climate patterns. The tragedy of brainworm isn't just about a parasite. It's about how our development shuffles ecosystems like a deck of cards, with deadly results. The moose is a living indicator of the health of our northern forests, and right now, it's telling us that its world is sick. The moose is a survivor. It's an ancient creature that has weathered ice ages and outlasted megafauna. But it may not be able to weather us. Its future depends on our ability to find balance. It depends on our willingness to protect vast, unbroken landscapes, to address the profound changes we're making to our climate, and to simply be more mindful neighbors, supporting conservation organizations that work to protect moose habitat, advocating for wildlife corridors that allow them to cross our roads safely, and making conscious choices to reduce our own carbon footprint. These are all ways we can help write a better next chapter for the king of the forest. The moose doesn't need to be tamed. It needs to be left wild. And its quiet, powerful presence in the woods reminds us that some things are worth protecting, not for what they can do for us, but simply for what they are. We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think is the most critical step we need to take? If you found this journey into the world of the moose fascinating, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the natural world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next adventure.